Coming up, what's going on with JAWS and pricing? We find out today.
You're listening to Double Tap, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Priest.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. We are back from break. Shaun Priest, did you have a nice time off?
I didn't notice it, but I'm sure it was great. Thank you.
What do you mean?
What do you mean, what do I mean? You wouldn't leave me alone. It was like being stalked by some Scottish gentleman. It was... you do not do holidays well, Stephen Scott. Can I just say that? Oh, I'm bored. I've got let's record. No, we're on holiday.
I will admit, we wrapped up on the Friday, and then I called you on the Saturday, then I called you on the Sunday, then I called you on the Monday, then I called you on the Tuesday, the Wednesday, the Thursday, the Friday. I think I left you alone on Saturday.
Oh, well done, Craig David. Thank you so much. Yes, it was... No, it was great. Thank you. I'm totally refreshed.
Yeah, I don't think you are, because honestly, I remember calling you at one point, because it was many calls. I can't remember which particular day it was, but I called you and you were editing 2 episodes of My Life in Books for AMI Audio.
Yes.
Wonderful show, of course, here in AMI.
Yeah, check it out. It's very good. That's
very
My
good.
Life in Books with Red Cell.
Sean's so committed to it, he was doing it on a holiday.
And
then you were also working on an edit of an interview that we recorded for today.
Called me in for. Yeah.
I also had to turn up for that interview as well, that last week as well. Oh, and there was the other show we had to do as well in advance for this week. Other than that...
It was a lovely 12 hours I had off, though, Stephen Scott. I made the most of it. Thank you.
So I said, listen, peek behind the curtain here, right? Come here, double tappers, get close. I've got a story to tell you.
Come closer.
So... I say to Mr. Priest, okay, look, I know it wasn't much of a week off. Tell you what, why don't you take some more time off? Take some time off in the next couple of weeks. And, we'll get some other people in to fill the slot.
No.
Exactly, that was the response. No, don't dare. No one's getting the shed chair.
As soon as someone else comes in, I'm gone. That's it. Then everyone will realise how utterly awful I am. No, sorry, I'm not taking the chance. I'm here.
Oh, that's the radio way. It really is.
Showbiz.
Takes me back to my early days of radio. Even if I was choked with a cold, even if my head had fallen off, I'd still find a way to get back into the studio. No one will take my show.
You know what it's like?
I crawl to the
Everyone
studio.
else is great. I mean, imagine Mickey B here every day. That'd be amazing. It's not going to happen.
You know what would happen, though, right? It would become a tech show. Boo! I'm against it.
Yes, no, it can't happen.
It is a tech show, honest. For legal contractual reasons. It is a tech show.
God bless you, Mr. F.
Yeah. Yes, God bless you, Mr. F. I hadn't heard from Mr. F in a while. I sent him an email. And the email said he was on holiday. And I'm like,
oh.
Holiday? Oh.
What, the same time as us?
Well, yeah, if you could call it that, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He was off at the same time, yeah. So I think he's back now, which means I imagine that whiskey bottle has been replenished in the bottom drawer.
Sure. Duty free. He's full of it.
Yeah.
I will say this. I think next time we organise, I believe we should say vacation, Stephen Scott. Next time we organise a vacation, I'm going to send you off somewhere. You're going abroad. I'm putting you on a ship.
Sean doesn't want to go abroad, but he's going to pay for me to go abroad.
I'm fine. It's just keeping you at a distance. That's what's going to happen. No,
but it doesn't work.
And an ocean between us.
No, it doesn't work, because you remember the last time I spent $40 calling you to say, I'm on a cruise ship.
Yes, let's record. No.
Let's do a show from here.
It's good to be back.
Yes, it is nice. I must admit, it's nice to get back in the studio and record. Have you been checking out the news? Have you been watching what's been going on?
No, because I've been on holiday. Well,
right.
Apparently. No, you know what? I haven't, actually. What is going on, Stephen Scott? I'm sure you've been tracking it every day. Any tech news to report?
Well, a couple of stories I want to mention. One is, and we were going to talk about this actually on Friday, but then I don't know what happened. I think I got sidelined by the whole JAWS conversation. Don't worry, Vispero are here to put the record straight a bit later.
I'm surprised by that they're talking to us.
I'm amazed they're still talking to us after that. It's funny, actually, I got so many emails in, and we're going to have the emails recorded, as always, by lovely Laura, who did also have a bit of a break. Glad someone did. So we're going to get some emails on very soon, really giving you the chance to respond to that. I will say there's a real mix. When you get like you get a viewpoint from people, and it's like you get one side versus the other, and the news always calls it a mixed bag of opinion. That is definitely what we've got, but we've got the extreme ends of that mixed bag in our inbox.
What opinion, though? I don't think we actually gave an opinion. We were simply asking questions, weren't we?
Well, we were suggesting. Well, no, I wasn't suggesting. I was asking the question: why isn't it the case that NVDA can be used more in the workplace, right? So,
which is also means, is JAWS the only option when it comes to employment? Yeah.
So big question, I know, and people tend to get very defensive over it, and there's a lot of reasons for this. I remember the same thing happened when I waded into this debate about 5 years ago, probably. I remember doing it on this show. I had mentioned that. I should try and dig that out because it was a really interesting conversation. But we had a chat on the show. Yeah, I mean, it'll never
make
happen.
a change.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a really interesting chat because I had suggested, or was asking again the question, really, that Microsoft Narrator is coming of age as it was around about 5 years ago, and would that be an option for a workplace? Now, at that time,
yes, I remember that.
Pillared for that one because it was, frankly, seen as a disgraceful thing to say. I think the big fear is that people think, and I kind of get this, that people think, if he's saying that out loud in this forum, there are employers who might hear him say that, him being me, and think, oh, we don't need to buy JAWS because we can just get NVDA, or we can just get Narrator for free because that's already there and it'll do the job fine. And I get that fear. I do. I get that fear. But I think it depends upon the job. And I think it also depends upon you having an honest conversation with your manager, with your boss, with whoever's in charge. I mean, as we'll get into later, because there's an interesting conversation coming up. We did record it last week with Matt, Ater, and Ryan Jones from Vispero. They're coming up a bit later. And they do touch on this. They do touch on the reasons why JAWS is oftentimes the preferred choice.
Yeah.
In some cases, the only choice.
Yes.
And that was what I was kind of wanting to get to. Why is that the case? Because I don't know. It's not that I'm asking the question on the basis of, well, I think everyone should just use NVDA and Vispero should just go, find somewhere else to do something. I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting, look, is there an option out there? Because as I mentioned in that diatribe on last Friday.
Good phrase to use. I like that. Good word. Yes.
It is a good word. Well,
diatribe.
It seems appropriate, I think. As I said in that, I had a friend who went through this 8 months of nothing except JAWS and 40 minutes mode. And that person couldn't get NVDA because it was seen to be unsecure or insecure or whatever it was that they saw as inappropriate in the IT department to put it on. And I just think, is that an old viewpoint? And we've had some emails in suggesting, yeah, that's a bit of an old view. I've also had emails in saying, absolutely not, JAWS is the only option. So we'll get into all that later.
We'll get some answers, yes.
We're going to get answers from JAWS. I do want to get... We did speak to, I think it was Nathan we spoke to from NV Access when we were at CSUN. And I remember you had an interview with someone.
Right, yeah.
I'd like to get them back on because I'd like them to kind of give their take on this as well.
Everyone can state their case.
Yeah. I just think it's, this is what this show's about. It's about opening up conversation. It's not about saying this is the way it is. I think this is the problem sometimes. This idea that whenever someone brings up an idea, somehow we're changing direction. Oh, that's it. We now have to all download NV. No, I'm not suggesting that.
Well, it's almost, we're all defensive about what we use, right? Because we are. There is that fear, as you mentioned, of it being taken away or changed, and suddenly we're lost almost, right?
Yeah.
I totally understand that, and I understand people being defensive about their current workflow. It makes total sense, but yeah, these are questions I hear all the time. And you know what? If we don't know the answers as a community, then how can we, give that information across to employers?
I absolutely hate assumptions. Hate it. And look, we actually all should. As blind people, that's one thing we should all hate because that's what we all face every day, right? We talk about attitudes, but it's assumptions. There are so many assumptions made about us as individuals, what we can and can't do. And we should hate that. We should push against it at every possible turn. And this is one assumption that, and it comes up a lot. You tend to get it where people say, oh, come on, that's nonsense. The answer is this. And you're like, well, hang on a minute. A, you know that. Good for you. I'm pleased you know stuff. Good for you. But we don't all know things. Can't know everything. So, we have to learn. And I think learning together is good.
Now about the feedback that we got.
Oh, it's just, well, look, as always, it's interesting, it's engaging, and I appreciate it because I love hearing all these different viewpoints. So keep them coming. That's what the show's all about. But we are going to clarify we're not going to get into just that today with Matt and Ryan. We're going to be talking about the bigger issue, which is affecting a lot of people in the US and Canada. And that was concerns around pricing and the structure of pricing. There was a concern about the home annual license in the US and Canada disappearing because it had gone from the website and the costs had increased for the home edition and the professional edition, which had confused people, thinking that the home annual license had gone and that the home edition price had gone up by 5 times. We can tell you today that that's not the case. Ryan and Matt are here to explain more. We did put a little clip out on the web last week, so hopefully you get a chance to catch that. If not, you'll get the chance to hear the full interview in about 10-15 minutes or so. Now, the other big issue in our inbox at the moment is, I think, the biggest issue, frankly, affecting all double tappers right now, and that is piano or xylophone. It's the big stuff we talk about here on the show, as you well know. Our email jingle has caused nothing but... I haven't had as many emails about anything. I remember the last time we had this many emails was about someone suggesting echolocation was something we should all learn, and there was war over that.
That was a hot topic.
That was a hot button. The latest one is piano or xylophone at the beginning of the email jingle.
How do you spell xylophone? Do we know?
It starts with an X, I think, doesn't it?
It does, yes. I believe I said it started with a Z the other day. It should be under Z on your keyboard, SFX, your sound card. And
Did you
I
get
got that
fake
wrong.
news?
Yeah, sorry. I don't use braille enough, obviously.
I was going to say you're not literate. That's another one for you. Yeah, that's still going on. But yeah, and also just to say as well, on the website now, doubletaponair.com, we have a new section which you can go and check out, and it's called Opinion, and it's just different parts of the show we've kind of surfaced up. I know not everyone can catch all of the show all the time. It's why we have the newsletter, so you can absolutely go and subscribe to that and get a full newsletter. You might have noticed that our newsletter hasn't appeared yet in your inbox. That's because we were on a week off, so we pushed it all to this week, except Shaun, of course, who was working the whole way, and me too, because I was bored.
Yes.
So we should just have come on air. We should just have done the show.
I know. It was pointless. We should have just done it. Anyway, it's fine. Yes.
But yeah, I want to talk about a couple of things. One being Ring. Now, Ring doorbells, there's a bit of an update coming. Now, in the US and Canada, first and only for Ring premium subscribers, but it is a feature that's going to be rolling out. And at first I was very excited about this because I thought, this is something which we were actually talking about just before we went on break.
Yes.
And that is AI video descriptions. They're going to be bringing it in to the Ring doorbell system. Now, in the US and Canada, at first, as I say, and only for premium subscribers, this is going to roll out. I will say, in those early days that they've just been reading about this, I don't have any access to this to try, but the demonstration gives you something along the lines of a person walks up the street with 2 dogs, or there's 2 people with white jumpers on looking in your car, type thing. It's kind of like that's
swag
it.
bags. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
I did see this headline and I was really excited, and immediately it took us back to that email that we did get from a listener. Sorry, I've forgotten her name now. But she was saying about she gave us the demo of the Lady A Plus, which was quite impressive.
I want to say Nicole.
Actually.
I think it might have been Nicole.
Nicole, that sounds right. Yeah, Nicole telling us about Lady A Plus. And she put the question about if you had a video doorbell, could you just say, describe what my video doorbell is looking at? And I pushed it even further. What about my security cameras? What's in the back garden, what's in the front garden, whatever. Made total sense. And then I saw this headline. Now, it does mention that it is purely in beta at the moment.
Yeah.
But it makes total sense. I'm slightly confused why it's only limited to the Ring video doorbell and not globally available to whatever security camera your smart speaker has access to. But hey, it's the beta. I think this is a really good idea.
It's a great idea. I kind of hope it gets more capable. I mean, I think the one thing it misses is the ability to identify faces. Now, some of them do. Some of them can identify people. I think the Nest was the one I always remember that had that, the Google Nest doorbell.
I believe the Ring had it at one stage. Do you ever actually use that, though? Because you got to go through actually tagging. I call it tagging. I don't know what the technical term of saying, yes, this face belongs to so-and-so, right?
You can't do that in Ring, can you?
I believe it came in on certain models, on the higher end models. I could be wrong because I got rid of my Ring.
Are you saying I don't have a very good Ring doorbell?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Fair enough.
And I've got the Blink video camera system,
cheap,
including doorbell. The cheap one works absolutely fine, by the way. Better than my Ring did. But there's not many features such as that. But do you remember facial recognition is in iOS, right? And you can go through your photos and give names to people. And I've never used it. I tried it out once and I just don't bother doing it.
Well, it's funny you say that. Because I've had Macs for years, and then I was using the Photos app on the Mac back in the day, probably before it was as much of a big deal on the iPhone. And it kind of did it itself. It started just identifying faces.
Oh, I don't like that. That's
I don't
scary.
know how it did it, but it would actually identify. Now, maybe it was something along the way. It would ask me, is this person or this person? It must have done. Or it was pulling it from contact info. I don't know how it was doing it, but it did actually come up with a whole bunch of people. I mean, it identifies my dog. It knows the dog.
Yes.
It knows, it's like, okay, that's interesting. It's like, show me all the pictures of, and it can do that.
All I want to know is there anybody in my front garden or around the house, right? I mean, it's those sort of questions. If you could customize the prompt for your video doorbell or camera, that would be incredibly useful. So
yeah, I mean, a good example of this is, my mum has a Ring doorbell, and it's obviously got you can adjust what's the area they call it, the sort of zone, the motion,
the motion trigger zones or whatever it is.
Yeah. And you can obviously adjust that. Now, it's not the most accessible thing to do.
Nope.
But if you can get it to reduce, then it's fine, because it'll only ever really worry about the immediate area. But, outside my mum's house, you've got the garden, you've got a fence, and then it's obviously the motion zone is large enough that it's picking up people walking past the fence. And you kind of think it would be so cool if it could just say, someone's walking past the fence rather than coming into that area, because that would be useful to her to know that it's not someone trying to come into the house or someone coming to the front door. It would just be like, oh, someme's passing by. Because today, for example,
motion detection.
Exactly. Because that to me is what AI could do. It could do that easily. I mean, we all know what PickyBot can do, and we know what other, if guys like, Martin van der Speck can do all this, why can't Amazon do this? Why can't the others do this? So yeah, we'll be intrigued to see what comes out of it. As you say, it's in beta at the moment. We'll see how that goes. I want to mention as well this other thing that's kind of interesting. It's called Guide. You heard about this? It's like on the Mac they've got Type Ahead, and there's another one on Windows as well. I think you were talking about
a Viewpoint, I believe it's called. Yeah.
So these are like AI assistants that can help you take actions on the screen, right?
Yeah, well, this is exactly what we're waiting on, right? With AI. AI agents, or agentic AI is the buzzwords on here. So this is AI that can see your screen and take action inside apps. Hey, book a table here for me is always the example given. Everyone eats out, apparently. But, in our case of, can you check out for me? Because the Pay Now button is somehow inaccessible to my screen reader. So having AI being able to look at an app or a website, figure out where everything is and what it does, and actually take action on it is what we're waiting on. And yeah, Guide, it's been around quite a while now. I believe it's still in beta, but it's quite impressive from what I hear.
It is. Well, look, there is a video that they've put up on YouTube, and we're going to play that in for you so you can get a sense of how it works.
Let's use Guide to navigate an inaccessible website. So I'm on Ryanair.com, and I'm trying to book a flight for July 5th. And I'm in the date picker, and the date picker has various accessibility issues and buttons that aren't labeled and lists that don't tell you what is selected. So I want to be really confident that I'm choosing July 5th. So let's pull up Guide. Say,
Guide.
Click on
Space.
July 5th
A.
for my departure date.
E. Stop response. Toolbar. Chrome menu button sub-menu customize and control Google Chrome.
I'll help you select July 5th as your departure date. Let me first take a screenshot to see
Official
the current state of your
Ryanair
screen.
website cheap flights in Europe Ryanair document.
I can see you're on the
June.
Ryanair website and need
Jewel
to select
button.
July 5th for your departure date. I'll need to click on the July tab first, then select the 5th.
Exact
Now I'll
dates
click
button.
on the 5th of July. Now I can see the July 2025 calendar. I'll click on July 5th. I've successfully selected July 5th as your departure date. I can see it's now displayed in the Depart field as Sat Fiv Yule. The date has been highlighted in yellow in the calendar.
Guide. Type a
Great.
message to Guide.
Thanks, Guide.
Edit.
Wow. I mean, that's the dream, right? That's exactly what you want.
It is. Didn't that sounded absolutely amazing? Now, of course, this is going to be the best case scenario, I'm assuming, right? How is it on, I mean, Does it need to learn sites? I got a thing on my Edge browser the other day when I started it up saying Copilot can now take action on certain things, and there was a list of sites. I couldn't get it to work, obviously, but that's not the point. But it's been trained on certain things. So, I mean, the true power of this is, okay, this is some sort of software that no one else has really seen before. It's not accessible. Can you make it happen? Hey, can you set up my Stream Deck for me using the totally inaccessible Elgato software? So, yeah, that was just a really cool demo. And I hope we're going to see something, something officially out soon.
Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah, like you say, I'd love to see something like that. Mac has type ahead, but I don't know how. I mean, I was on the website the other day having a look at it, and it's still there, still functioning, but whether or not it's been updated in a while, I don't know. But, you know, all of these projects sound good. I kind of feel this is something that the operating systems themselves can handle, but the benefit of this kind of product is it's built with us in mind. So, you know, the whole infrastructure, as we know, I mean, look at the apps we've seen for Copilot and for, you know, ChatGPT and even Gemini. To some degree, there are accessibility challenges with them. So
terrible.
That's a problem, right? So you can't rely on those necessarily. We're looking for something like this.
This is going to be very cool. Again, I'm going to say it, potential.
Potential, yeah.
Potential is amazing. But yeah, you can actually try this stuff out now if you can sign up. I think Guide is still, as I said, in beta, and it's a sign-up process for it, as in there is a list. And I also believe there is a cost to this one.
Yeah, you'd have to go, I didn't go further than really just looking at it. I think I vaguely remember $8 a month or something was something.
When it comes
like
out of beta, we're really going to dive into this, obviously, and we'll find out, we'll dig into it because it could be incredibly exciting.
Now, from potential to possible, because I don't know where we're at with this, there's a lot of rumors flying around about what Apple are going to do to supercharge Siri. And one story at the moment that's running around is that Anthropic has been chosen as the engine, essentially, that will power Siri. The idea now is that they're not going to rebuild Siri instantly. Obviously, it's going to take time to do that. I think they've realized they're going to have to. But in the meantime, they're going to supercharge it with another large language model system, and that is going to be, or at least the rumor is, it's going to be through Anthropic. So they're, of course, the people behind the popular website Claude, which is a very similar product to ChatGPT. Thoughts on that? I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense to use something that's functioning and working. We heard that Amazon were working with Anthropic as well. I don't know how far that's gone.
Anthropic seems very well respected by all the other major players as well. They're doing some really interesting work, apparently. And yeah, do you know what? I'm kind of, I don't know, spent. I'm emotionally drained when it comes to AI. You just don't know.
And Siri.
I've got to, well, yeah, but it's just, okay, you've already got a partnership there with ChatGPT. So what's the reasoning here? Look, it's all to do with business, I'm sure. I don't know the answer, but
Microsoft to put the money in, surely. That's the big issue there. Microsoft are paying the bigger money. So they're going to get the focus with ChatGPT, right? So
yeah, but I mean, Apple's pockets aren't shallow. I mean, they could
they
could put
really
whatever
buy
money.
a lot of them. That's the thing.
Yeah, look, any improvement is a good thing. I gotta say, I'm finding AI more and more disappointing lately. After that amazing guide demo that I just showed there, I've been having some conversations with Copilot and Gemini, all of them, and it's just been wrong answer after wrong answer after wrong answer. I'm kind of thinking, are we losing accuracy in the race to the top here? It's getting a little disappointing.
It would not surprise me. It genuinely would not surprise me. One more story I want to mention quickly, and that is there's a rumor of a new MacBook coming in 2026, and it will have an iPhone processor running.
What?
So we're talking here MacBook on the cheap. What we're talking about is apparently sub $600, sub $600 apparently, which is quite interesting. That's Mac Mini pricing, and it will have an iPhone processor of some kind. It'll probably, I mean, although it was interesting, someone was saying if it was the iPhone processor, the A18 Pro they're talking about putting into it, this is the rumor anyway, that is apparently benchmarked up against an Intel Core i9 14th gen processor. So it's going to do okay for what we would need it to do.
It does depend on the workflow. We're talking single thread, multi-thread. Yeah, you can take all that with a pinch of salt. It's going to be great, I'm sure, but kind of, like you said, why? You've got the M4 Mac Mini there.
I have a thought on this, and I think it's to basically put some distance between it and the MacBook Air. I think a lot of people feel, I can't afford an Air, maybe I should go Pro. Maybe they need a reason to go to the Air, and they bring this into the market to say, okay, look at this cool thing, but remember, you can get the Air, and then that drives up the sales of that. That's my cynical view on it.
I fear we're going back to the old days of just swamping with too many options out there with not too much distinguishing.
Well, I did see
features.
one comment which said it's a bit like the iPad range. You've got the different ranges, different types of iPads. And it's true, there are, I think too many actually, but you can say, well, you've got the mini, you've got the iPad for education, you've got the iPad for this, and education's a big market. Maybe Mac or Apple are looking to get back into it with the Mac. Who knows? Anyway, look, we're going to take a short break. So we're going to come back. We're going to be talking to Matt and Ryan from Vispero. We recorded that conversation last week, but we are going to play that for you today, right in the middle of your holiday. Also, just a reminder, we're going to be at Site Village from tomorrow. We'll be recording today, as you listen to this on the Monday. We're going to be recording our episode today from Site Village, and we'll broadcast that tomorrow on the show. So hope to bring you some interesting conversations. I'm going to be recording all day today, so we can bring you some really interesting chats that you can hopefully enjoy by the end of the week. So some interesting companies, some interesting products. I'll tell you more about that on tomorrow's show. For now, though, here's how to get in touch with Double Tap.
Get in touch with Double Tap. Email feedback at doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. And now you can send an audio or video message to us on WhatsApp. That number is 1-613-481-0144.
Okay, let's talk all about Jaws, and of course it's its 30th year this year, celebrating that, of course. Matt Ater and Ryan Jones, who are back with us. We're going to be talking about that and a few other bits and pieces. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Looking forward to catching up with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, you've been the subject of conversation here on the show recently.
Don't tell them, they might not have listened.
They absolutely have.
Can you drop Ryan's name in the future instead of my name when you want to... when you want to blame somebody for something, it's quite okay. Just use his name.
There was no blame. We had questions, and we'll get to that.
We will get to that. But look, I think we got to start with the big question, which is affecting or certainly interesting a lot of people, and that is what's going on with pricing at the moment with Jaws, and I guess Zoom Text as well. But the conversation mostly I see is around Jaws pricing. So I think this is a very much a US question first, because obviously you have in the US and in Canada as well the home annual license. And there was some concern when it disappeared from the website, people thinking that perhaps it had gone entirely. And then there were rumors of the prices increasing for Jaws, and some concern that that price was going to go up, quite a major amount of money. What's actually going on? What's happening with Jaws? What's happening with home annual license? What's happening with pricing? Tell us the story.
Yeah, I'll be happy to start with this. So I think, unfortunately, there was some misunderstandings that happened. So the root of this is we started to move in line with any other modern software company, in that we were trying to we're working to offer subscription options for our professional and our primary home editions. So if we take a step back and think about Jaws, Zoom Text, and Fusion kind of in three main editions. You have the professional edition, the home edition, and then in the US and Canada, we have the home annual edition, which is a very specific edition for a very specific targeted group of people. And so if we think in that context, in the past, you always had, for the professional edition, which is used in the workplace, bought by employers for employees, the traditional home edition, which is generally purchased by rehabilitation agencies, sometimes bought by individuals, especially in the past, the perpetual licenses, often bought by training centers, nonprofits, things like that. And then the home annual, which started about 7 years ago. The professional and the home editions, there was only a perpetual license option for those. So we recently introduced a subscription option for each of those. So there's a professional edition subscription and a home edition subscription. And what we found out is that their confusion came out around the naming of some of these things. So you have the home edition, then you have the home annual edition. The home edition subscription price was certainly higher than the home annual, because the home annual is targeted for a very specific type of person, someone paying out of their own pocket for the software in the US and Canada for obviously non-commercial use. And so there was some confusion where it looked like the home, what we were calling the home subscription, people were thinking that was the home annual, and it was significantly higher than the home annual subscription price. So that's where the confusion started. I would say that the home annual subscription is still available. Absolutely. It's never been taken away. We did take it down from the web store, and we've asked that people call in if they want to sign up for a new subscription to that. And I'll talk about why that is in a minute, but it's still there. And in fact, we re-added it as of towards the end of June. It's been added back, and it looks like a regular product now in our web store like it did in the past. It's just that when you go to purchase it, it tells you to call our customer service team. So it doesn't let you finish the purchase online, but it tells you to call the customer service team. But it is there, and it is easily discoverable like it was in the past. So main point is it is all still there. The confusion was happening where we had this home subscription, which is available for rehabilitation agencies and others. It was getting conflated or mixed up with the home annual edition. And one of the things that we're going to do is rebrand what's called the home annual subscription. We're going to rebrand that later this year to try to get the word home out of it. We're going to change the name so it's not confusing. So I think that's the root of it, and I'm happy to talk about any of those things in more detail, but that's the overarching picture of, I think, why the confusion started for some.
Kind of understandable, though, right? You mentioned the branding there. I got confused myself just listening to that. It is understandable how people would get confused because it's all targeted at different levels of organization or home user or rehab, as you mentioned there, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why we've got to rebrand some of this to make it, the words and the names of it fit more and be easier to explain and discuss.
There was an issue, wasn't there, with companies, or I was talking about this the other day on the show, or last week before we went on break, about the fact that there was some people who were possibly, and I mean, I'm just kind of surmising here because this is what I've heard. I think, Matt, you've talked about this on the show with us before as well. People who sometimes buy the home annual license but use it in a professional capacity. Now, it could be the case the individual buys it and then it gets expensed back by the company because they think that's a cheaper way of doing it. But that, of course, can have an impact on the rest of us who want to use the home annual license, because that's not what the home annual license is for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the reasons that right now, while we're kind of working through this and trying to better understand the usage of the home annual subscription, that's why we're asking people to call in to sign up for it if you're a new customer, while we kind of work through putting some protections in place and making sure that it's being used in the right way for the people who it was designed for. While we work through that, it's just easier for us and for people signing up to call in. And we'll see if that needs to be the case longer term, or if we'll be able to put it back where it's purchasable through the web store. I'm not sure how that will play out. But I just want to also make a note for anyone who's already in the home annual program. If you already have a subscription, nothing's changing. You don't have to call in for anything. It auto renews just like any other subscription. There's nothing else to do. The caveat, the reason people have to call in is for someone who's getting a new or starting a brand new subscription to the home annual.
Can we talk about pricing and increases? Because there's talk of increased pricing costs, if you like, for buying into this now for the professional, for the home edition, and for the home annual license. What's the story there?
Yeah, I mean, we've done price increases a number of times over the years, just like pretty much every other company has. So for the professional license and the home license, we did some price increases recently, both for a perpetual, and we didn't do a price increase obviously for subscription in those because we just launched the subscription offering. But as part of launching the subscriptions, there was some price increases for professional perpetual licenses and home licenses as well, both in the U.S. and internationally. And it somewhat is dependent on the different markets. So obviously our global market is very complex in how the pricing is done and what the different countries are priced at based on different factors. So, we don't have flat pricing across the world, as you can imagine. So oftentimes when we do a price increase, it's for certain markets, but it's no different really than what any other company's done. I think the bigger issue that I've been hearing is maybe not as much about the price increase, but just the confusion on which edition should I get, because we did not increase the prices by 5x for the home annual subscription, for example. We did a 10% price increase on that program, which was the second time we've ever done a price increase in 7 years. The last one, it launched in 2018. There was about a 5% price increase in 2021, and then a 10%. So basically $9.50 annually increase in JAWS for the home annual. So we've been able to not do price increases very regularly for that program, which has been really good.
I mean, for the home annual license then, so what is the pricing in the US and Canada going to be, and when does that price change kick in? Or has it already?
It's already, yeah. And the 10% price increase started in, I think it was late April for new subscriptions, and then May for the renewals. So it was a 10% increase for both JAWS, Zoom Text, and Fusion.
Can I ask, you mentioned you couldn't just, increase across the board a flat rate. Why is that? Why is there a different price for different markets?
A lot of this has to do with negotiated pricing with each country's, in the US, we call it rehabilitation, or insurance in Germany or different places. There's negotiated prices by our distribution in those countries. And so while we may have control in some markets, some are, 5-year agreements. And so it takes time before price changes can take effect.
It's really interesting. Okay, so I'm sort of going back to the conversation Stephen and I had last week or the week before about, the questions we had about JAWS. I'm wondering, you mentioned distributors in different areas. Why is that? Why can't you just run it from a centralized, you download the software from you and you buy it, like lots of, you mentioned, modern companies and subscriptions are here to stay. That's for sure. But also, a lot of software, you just go to the website, download it, pay there, and you're done. Why are we still using the distributor models through different territories?
Localization, support, purchasing agreements in those countries, whatever the reasons. There's multiple reasons, but we don't localize all the versions that we have. We have our distributors do that in some countries. So they manage the localization of all of the content that's changed in each release.
Okay, by localization, what does that cover?
So, translating into other languages.
Sorry.
Okay.
Translation. Yeah. So if I'm switching from English to Italian, that needs to be changed. Not the voice that's in JAWS, but what it's reading, the help messages, the training materials, the menus, if they've changed, all of that content.
And as Matt said, those dealers or distributors are often providing support, especially in their countries. They're the person you go to. So if I'm in Italy using JAWS, I'm not going to call Freedom Scientific in the US and get an Italian-speaking tech support person. I'm going to call the dealer there in Italy, who's got obviously people in Italy who speak my language and know the localization, the translation of my product, so that they can provide support for me.
Okay, but that answers a lot of questions, and I think that the key here, I guess, is to go to the website and have a look at the pricing, whether it's for the professional, or the home edition, or for the home annual. Obviously, you have to call in to get that if you're a new customer. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. I want to go back a little bit to the conversation I had, because I know, Matt, you heard Shaun and I wittering on before we went on break, talking about JAWS and NVDA and all the rest of it. And I want to give you guys a chance to respond to some of that, because you heard what I was talking about. And really where I was coming from was the point of choice. I've been in many, many situations where I have been told, and by the way, this has never been by Vispero or any of the Vispero companies when they were, pre-Vispero, if you like. This was by assessors. This was from people who were coming into the organization to advise me on products. They were telling me there was one choice. And whether that was a braille display that happened to be a Focus 40 in that particular occasion, or whether it was you need to use JAWS because that's the standard, or you use Zoom text because that's the standard, that was kind of what I was aiming at with that conversation. But, I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that because, of course, you will, I imagine, believe that you are the choice for workplace. So, I just want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Yeah, regarding the assessors, I want to start with that, which I think are two different topics, the assessors versus workplace. The assessors, clearly, any assessor is going to probably be biased on their own experiences. And I don't mean that in any negative way towards the assessors. I just think it's natural. If you were growing up with Word or Word Perfect, you went to that, right? And you would have, I know I just said Word Perfect like anybody even knows what that is today.
I do. I'm old.
I remember
Lotus
that.
123, anyone?
Exactly.
Word Star.
But there was a time when
Gladys.
they were, everybody pushed everybody to Word Perfect. And then when it went to Windows, it probably slimmed down because Microsoft was really bouncing into that market. So separate from the assessors are trained, they grow up with something, that's what they use. That may be what their demo center has. So that's probably a lot of the cases and reasons for an assessor choosing one thing over the other. That may be what they're skilled in training or what they're skilled in supporting. So I think that the assessor is one area. Then when we talk about a workplace, I think it's a little bit more complex than just allowing someone to choose what they want to bring into the workplace. And I'm speaking more from a software perspective than a hardware perspective. A hardware, they all just plug in and stuff, but like we have contracts in hardware where we have to turn off a bunch of features in the hardware, like Bluetooth. Certain companies don't allow you to have your Bluetooth device connected to the computer, because if you do, is that potentially bringing in viruses or something else to the device? They may even turn off the storage on those devices, so they dumb them down, if that makes sense. The same complexity comes into choosing software and what a company's comfortable in supporting. So if you have one employee, not a big deal to say, hey, I'm going to choose this screen reader or that screen reader. When you start having 50 employees, let's use an airline who has 50 blind employees working in customer service, they have to test, validate, deploy, support, security patching, train the employees, even potentially write scripts for those employees. And so if you start saying you have choice, you bring in Dolphin, you bring in NVDA, you bring in Narrator, you bring in JAWS, they don't have the ability to support it. And that becomes a very complex environment. So we have an agency in the United States has 2,000 blind and low vision employees. They use JAWS, Zoom Text, and Fusion. They don't use anything else. That's what they are authorized to provide on their systems. Could have they gone with something else? They could have gone with something else, but they chose that path because that's what most people showed up to with their skills for. And so they were purchasing that, for each of the users and keeping it up to date. You don't want to keep up to date multiple products. I mean, they don't let you use Word Perfect at work if they're using Word. They don't let you use Zoom. They make you use Teams. And I'm using that specific business environment. Then you roll over to another business and they're allowing you to use JAWS, Zoom Text Fusion, but they're making you use Zoom. They don't allow you to use Teams. And so across companies, the complexity of that is really key if they are large employers. Now, if you talking about a one-off, I don't think an employer probably has the same perspective as somebody who's an enterprise level customer or something. If you go to, one of your banks over there in the UK or a bank in Canada or a bank in the US, I think, it gets very complex if you start saying, I need to roll out multiple things and support those things. Does that make sense from that perspective?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. It's all about the scale. Is there 50 blind people working in any organization? If there is, hooray. I'm so happy about that.
There's 2,000 in one agency in the United States.
Where? I'm sending off my resume. Where's that?
I know an airline that has 50 blind employees.
Wow.
I know a hotel chain that has 50 blind employees.
Hang on a minute. These blind people aren't pilots, are they?
Yes.
That's a terrible thing to say. Let's quickly move on.
Considering
blind
that
people
they
can do
don't let
anything.
you,
I forgot.
They don't let you sit in the exit row, so I don't know that they're going to let you sit in the
We're
pilot
working
seat.
on JAWS scripts for that. We'll see what happens.
Come on,
theory,
Doug Lee,
right?
sort that out.
Yeah.
I mean, there is collision radar that talks. What's wrong?
Yeah.
But scripting is
And
another
scripting is
piece of that.
yeah.
That if you think about, like in some of the examples Matt shared, many of those are using custom scripts to make their call center applications or their sales management or whatever tools they're using. So if you were think about supporting multiple screen readers with that same level of scripting, and how do you keep all that up to date? That's another reason that deciding on JAWS, for example, is much more manageable for a company to handle and support the users.
And then if we talk about all the features that are built into JAWS, our voices are built in, but they're not installed by default. Like all the different Sirance voices that you may or may not use. But the challenge is that as an admin situation, you don't have the authorization to install those things. So some companies put those inside of a tool like SCCM or Intune or one of these other deployment tools, and they allow users to do it by themselves by going into, let's call it a software center, and you click the product and you get that voice. But if you try to do it yourself, it's blocked. And so that's the beauty of working with large corporations to kind of build deployment methods for making sure that happens properly. And we have thousands of customers that are like that have multiple multi-user licensing for their employees. So this is not like a small picture thing. This is pretty, big picture in terms of how you manage software inside of a company.
Yeah, and look, I'm bringing up this topic, and then when I brought it up, I bring it up because of a choice, which I think is important. I admit that there are challenges when it comes to these larger scale, and that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the example which I gave on the show, which was where someone sat in an office for the best part of 8 months trying to get funding through to get a JAWS license, and had to sit with a 40-minute version of 40-minute demo version of JAWS every day for 8 months because the organization wouldn't install anything else on their computer. And that's a really difficult situation, isn't it? I mean, that's the kind of challenge. That's not your fault. That's nothing to do with you. That's unfortunately just lack of thinking, I think, on the part of their particular IT team. And the fact that they wouldn't open up to NVDA or even the Windows narrator,
Well, narrator would have been built in. I would assume they could have pressed a key, but it's from our perspective, one of the things that we're very strong at is working with employers to build this into their environment. Now, that's, again, easy when you have multiple users, probably harder if it's your first time ever having a blind employee.
Because usually the first question is, what is this thing? I mean, we've had, since we recorded that show, we've had a number of emails in from people who've said in my environment, they had no idea what JAWS was. They had no idea what NVDA was. It was a fight to even get a screen reader into my world because they just had no idea.
Niche software. Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. We field security. I can't tell you how many security assessments we fill out every week from companies who are, again, not understanding what the software is, or even if they do, they require security assessments. So we have to go and prove how we're building the software, the security measures that we take into consideration when building it. So that's another area that the companies are really concerned about these days is security, and what environment are you building your software, and how are you ensuring that malicious code doesn't get into our network, and so on.
And we have to build in. So thinking about add-ons or removals. We have features for corporations to remove features of our software that they don't want. So when you guys install JAWS, you just hit next, and it's done. But somebody may say, I don't want Picture Smart AI because I don't want AI on my systems. We have the ability for, people to actually turn those features off during the install process. And then, I mean, I'm not a fan of turning it off, okay? But at the same time, I'm not going to say no to a customer who may manage their systems differently. And so having all of those, all the infrastructure for employment situations is really key. And I'll be at a conference in a couple of weeks at in Orlando called Disability Inn, where I'm speaking. There's thousands of employers who are there doing, they're mostly accommodations people, accessibility people. And, what we have been very successful at is trying to get those companies to embed the software into their software center so that it's not hard. That example you gave, it's not that hard to push a piece of software to somebody who needs it. And we've been very successful at working with companies to do that.
Well, look, it is your 30th year. Lots of celebrations, lots of cake, lots of shark-themed stuff, I imagine. I just mean the holidays.
There may be a shark roaming around NFB. I'm just saying there may be a shark.
That would not surprise me at all. Okay,
I'll take your pictures.
Yeah, what's the news? What's happening this year? Because of course, I imagine we're heading up towards. Because where are we? We're in July, so we're heading up to Jaws 2026. Goodness me, how it moves on, and you'll be getting ready for, I guess, lots of interesting stuff coming out there. Obviously, you've got the 30th anniversary celebrations. Tell us what's been going on.
I'll share a couple of things in it for some that may hear this before the summer conventions in the U.S., NFB and ACB. Of course, we'll be there. We will have discounts available, as we always do, for people in those organizations. So you can check our webpage for that info. But a couple of things that we'll be talking about. One, we are in the process of finishing support for multi-line braille displays, which this is really, really cool. So this is
huge.
Where JAWS will work with some of the products coming onto the market, like the APH and HumanWare Monarch device, or there's several companies, DOT does this, New Haptics. There's a number of companies with multi-line braille displays. And so JAWS will be able to support those devices in bringing multiple lines of braille, and not just multiple lines of braille, but structured in a way that you can now look at a spreadsheet and see how the rows and columns are lined up in braille. I mean, these are things that we've never been able to do as screen reader users with braille, with a single line braille display. And so that's really exciting. We'll be showing that off. Those companies, those hardware companies, will be showing that off this summer. I expect this will be a part of the product when we get into the fall of this year. The other one is there's some new AI things that we're working on that I'm looking forward to showing off in the next couple of weeks, a sneak preview. We did this last year with the FS Companion tool. We showed it off at the conventions, we got feedback, and then we released it in the fall. So we're working on something new for interacting with web pages with AI that I think is going to be really valuable. I know for me, just trying it out and testing it as the team's building it, it's already saving me time, and I'm finding it really beneficial myself. So we'll be showing that off over the next few weeks and getting that out into the product this fall. So we're trying to mix. Our point in celebrating the 30th anniversary of JAWS is not to sit back and eat cake, as much as I like cake. But the point is we've got to keep innovating, and AI is a great way to do that. And so we're pushing forward full steam ahead on what we can do to help people to be more productive with JAWS, Zoom Text, or Fusion.
So Ryan, can you slip me you have my email address. Can you send me that new build so I can play with it?
Yeah, even Matt has not seen this yet.
Wow.
So cool.
Well, don't forget us. CC us in on that.
Don't worry, guys. We could talk later. I mean, it's fine. It's fine. They hide stuff from me, Shaun, because they're weird that I just tell you guys.
Stephen does that to me. I know what it's like, brother.
Well, I have to because he breaks it.
Yes, that's true. So
that's right.
Is that part of the next big thing?
It's similar. Yeah, I would say it's
someone's being a bit coy. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, all of this, look, everything is kind of related, as you guys know. When you're trying to use a screen reader, all we want to do is do our jobs, live our lives, whatever it is that we do with the screen reader. So we're just trying to find ways to make that better. And a lot of these things sort of merge and meld together. We have trouble delineating one feature from another feature now because so many things become interconnected, especially where AI is concerned. So all of this is really related to the idea of getting access to things on the screen that either we didn't have access to in the past or were challenging or inefficient to navigate. And that's really what we're focused on.
Brilliant. Well, listen, I wish you all the best with it. Have great fun at the conventions as they continue and as they take place at the NFB and, of course, ACB as well. And come back soon. Tell us all about the new features as they come out. We always love to learn about them. Matt, Ryan, always good to have you on.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. I think that's answered a few of our questions. I'm sure our listeners will have more, but it's great that the guys are always willing to come back on and answer those questions.
That's what it's all about, right? That conversation. Yeah. Thanks again to Matt and Ryan. It really, really came through for us. Thank you.
Right, we're out here because we are going to Site Village in Birmingham. Yeah, we're heading there right now after the show. We're going to be heading down to Birmingham. If you're there, come say hello.
All right.
And we'll be there. We'll be
That's my
recording
Birmingham
today
accent.
as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to that. And also some interesting chats around tech. One product in particular that I know Narina has been listening to us for a long time. Narina was asking, what's ever happened to the Capsus CapX headset? Stay tuned, Narina, because we will have news from Site Village tomorrow. Oh, that was a teaser. That was nice. I like that.
Well done. It's like the X-Files for a minute. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.